With each of these tragedies, the national conversation always returns to guns as the problem, and our lawmakers remain polarized over taking action.
This happens nowhere else other than the United States of America. This epidemic of mass slaughter, this scourge of school shooting after school shooting. It only happens here not because of coincidence, not because of bad luck, but as a consequence of our inaction. We are responsible.
I'm not saying don't focus on the gun part, but we also have to focus on the violence part. For to talk about gun violence requires you to talk about both. And the violence part is the one that goes well beyond an easy government solution.
The president also responding to the shooting today, but has a different priority.
We are committed to working with state and local leaders to help secure our schools and tackle the difficult issue of mental health. Later this month, I will be meeting with the nation's governors and attorney generals, where making our schools and our children safer will be our top priority. It is not enough to simply take actions that make us feel like we are making a difference. We must actually make that difference.
So, Juan, you were mentioning in the commercial break about this guy's mental profile. He had just lost both of his parents. Where do you see that factoring in?
Well, I mean, I don't know, but I just said to you, Jesse, I think that's a trauma. In other words, for a young person to lose both parents is, I mean, that's unsettling. That will change the sense of your stability in this world. And we know that he had also broken up with the girlfriend, was fighting with the girlfriend, fighting with the girlfriend's new boyfriend. Yep. And then there's all this rumor about whether or not he was involved in fringe kind of alt-right or white supremacist groups. So there's a lot of instability there. And I think when we start to think about mental health, I don't have any objection to it, but I just think we have to understand that, for example, under President Obama, there was an effort to say, if you are getting Social Security payments, for example, because of your mental health condition, you can't handle your finances, you then shouldn't be eligible to pass a background check and obtain a gun. President Trump has said that's not going to happen. He said that's not the case. So to me, you've got to look at where we as Americans can agree, that where we're not shouting at each other. Mm-hmm. And I'd say one of the things we can agree on is that people who have severe mental health issues should not be able to get a gun. That a kid who can't buy a beer, in this case, shouldn't be able to buy a gun, and that we could look at his background and say, you've had a lot of trouble, son.
That's true.
Let's just back off this gun thing for a minute.
But not buying a beer is not a mental health problem, so that's not a
No,
comparison.
I'm saying he's 19.
I know, but...
So he can't buy a beer in Florida.
Yeah, I understand that. But if you grow up on a farm, a gun is like a car. It's something it's a tool. And also, in terms of if you want to talk about agreement, let's not forget that the ACLU also agreed with Trump on that decision. And I'm not entirely sure that whatever Trump denied would have stopped what happened today. Right. Again, what I'm trying to get at is that we have to step back and think about this rationally. There's no knee-jerk solution to this. When somebody is planning something, they can plan for every preventive measure. We have seen this with 9/11. We saw this with the World Trade Center was attacked, and they still were able to pull it off again because they plan. It's almost impossible to prevent a fiend's plan.
But that's not look. You got to say, why not try?
I'm saying, well, obviously,
we must try something.
You say I gave 4 suggestions.
Everybody knows that if you get into an evil genius, we're not going to stop.
Kimberly, what do you think about some of the preventative measures that could have been taken? Do you see anything specific here?
It's really tough to say because it's an ongoing investigation, so you don't know, like preventative measures in terms of, who was he associating with. I'm very curious about the level of premeditation and deliberation, how far this goes back. Juan brought forward some of the things that people might be sympathetic to, that this is a young person that lost both their parents. Having lost both my parents, I understand the grief that you go through with that, as a young child and going forward without that loss of support, with that loss of support. Nevertheless, that doesn't negate the action and perhaps the motive and intention. If this is someone, even prior to that had, a history of conduct or violent tendencies or ideation in terms of violence, who was he associating with? What were the known choices?
His mother had called the police on him before
and had alerted
repeatedly.
Yeah.
Right. So what Dana suggested too is that the fact that there's some pre-existing obsession and focus with this, and this is someone that obviously had been engaging over the course of time in a history of sociopathic tendencies and behaviors, showing a lack of consideration or any kind of empathy for animals or anything like that, and torturous behavior, that type of thing. So that's like a pattern of conduct you look at to say, you know what, that's evil.
Yep. And you shouldn't be able to roam around and buy a gun like that when all that stuff's percolating.
Well, I think a couple of things. One of the things the sheriff mentioned earlier today is that they want to be able to know, like, if you get a call from a parent, like the Sandy Hook shooter's mother. Remember, she calls. She doesn't know what to do. Her child is exhibiting behavior that she is incapable of dealing with. She's trying to get help. She says she can't get help. What we just found out yesterday, on the same day, and Greg found this story this morning, in Washington State, a grandmother has responsibility for an 18-year-old. She is concerned. She goes into the room, she sees a journal, she starts reading it, and she realizes, oh my gosh, this kid is about to do something unlawful and to hurt students in his school. She calls the police, they go, and they find, yeah, absolutely, he has the weapon, he has the plan, and they arrest him. So there has to be some personal responsibility things. I also think this is not going to be popular, but we're not going to get rid of the guns. Now, there's more guns than people now. But what could you do on the ammunition side of things? And regulation and taxes is a possibility.
All right.